Hey there guys, my name is Turkey, and this is the first of hopefully many lore breakdown videos where I tell you everything there is to know about an original character in Dead by Daylight in the order from when they came out, starting from Survivor, then alternating to Killer, and so forth. The subject of this lore video is none other than Dead by Daylight's Survivor poster boy, Dwight Fairfield. Tell me what you think about Dwight and his lore below, and let's get into it. Dwight Fairfield is a character that I imagine a lot of people can see themselves in. He is a man who struggles with self-identity, self-confidence, and his desire to be more than he is, and the debilitating fear that keeps him from achieving it. Dwight is the kind of guy that things just sort of happen to. He doesn't put a lot of action into changing his situations, and he is very easily walked all over. He often dreams of being a hero, but doesn't quite have what it takes to step up. His attempts to socialize and join clubs or groups are met with rejection, indifference, or worse, he's laughed out of the building. This happening at a young age instilled this fear of opening up in Dwight very early in his life, and instead of trying to overcome it, he instead honed his skills into disappearing into a crowd, being unnoticeable, doing what it takes to scrape by, but never ambitious enough to step up. He has bounced from job to job, taking whoever will hire him without much regard for what he is actually doing. He's been a pizza delivery driver, a kid's costume party entertainer, and featured most heavily in Tome 3 Escalation, a story hook writer for a company ran by a tyrannical CEO. I'm going to get into his archive lore and summarize everything that happened so that you don't have to read or listen to them yourself, which, by the way, the audio recordings for his lore will be provided at the end of the video in case you are interested and don't want to do a bunch of in-game challenges to unlock them. But first, I'm going to read his in-game backstory, which for years was the only information on Dwight that we had. So let's sit back, grab some snacks, and learn all about what makes Dwight Fairfield tick. Shout out to the Dead by Daylight wiki for his lore and a little bit extra. They write, Dwight was geeky and scrawny through high school. He always wanted to be one of the cool kids, but somehow never had the charisma. He tried out for the football team but was cut, the basketball team didn't even take a look, and his grades were distinctly below average. One weekend, on a team building exercise from his dead-end job, Dwight's boss led them deep into the woods before breaking out his family recipe moonshine. Dwight remembers taking the first sip before waking up late the next morning all alone. During the night, the others had abandoned him. Once again, the laughingstock of the community, Dwight tried to hike his way out of the woods. That was the last anyone ever heard of Dwight Fairfield. Dwight isn't the typical guy you think of when someone says survivor. He lacks that certain pizzazz, and without his glasses, he's more or less blind. But as the sun sets and the woods come alive, Dwight clasps to his rat race life, making sure that he'll live to see another day even though something unimaginable is after him. Dwight won't stop. He'll survive no matter what. As others spent hours being seen in high school, he spent hours becoming invisible and avoiding danger. And it doesn't matter if it's dangers in the hallway or dangers in the woods. Survival is key. As other people panic when terror infects them, Dwight makes use of his disturbing teen experience. The tables have now turned, and now others need to follow Dwight's firm directions if they are to survive, as he knows how to disappear. The Dwight that we see in-game is very starkly different from the one that we learned about in his archive lore, which is something I really appreciate from behavior in terms of character growth and story writing. Something you'll understand once I tell you about his backstory is just how much Dwight has come out of his shell since entering the fog, and how he uses his fear and ability to disappear into a crowd to his advantage in a world like the Entity's realm. How he finally steps up and takes a leadership role regardless of how afraid he is. Let's all find out how far Dwight has come by first looking into his past. This is the summary of Tome 3 Escalation. So the basic rundown is, Dwight took a job at Peak 22 as a quote-unquote story hook supervisor because he needed the money, and because he can't stand dressing up for a kid's birthday party anymore because quote-unquote kids can be so cruel. But he doesn't even know what a story hook is and thinks that it's made up. He was tasked with creating fake profiles and leaving positive reviews for Lazar, the CEO of the company. Peak 22 is a company that creates story hook ads, or at least that's one of the things that they claim that they do. Dwight is friends with Rose, the manager who hired him onto the company. She continuously tries to give him advice to survive not only in the company, but also under Lazar's scrutiny. One day Rose is crying because she didn't go along with a joke Lazar made at a meeting that that was making fun of another employee's speech impediment, so he embarrassed her in front of everyone. This is where Dwight finds out that there's a yearly roast where ex-Peak 22 employees get together to make fun of Lazar. Rose then asks Dwight to record the meetings for material for the roast and potentially legal reasons. Sometime in the future, Lazar yells at his lawyer for being unable to register the story hook concept because it already exists, and the lawyer is fired on the spot. Rose attempts to calm Lazar down, but he turns his anger on her. Dwight wants to help her, but doesn't want to risk his cozy job, so he instead imagines himself in a lot of scenarios where he does help her, where he's brave, but runs to the bathroom instead. When Lazar, which the employees secretly call the Naked Emperor, announces the title of his autobiography, which is called The Brilliant Mind Inc., written by a ghostwriter at that, Rose and Dwight praise his idea sarcastically, which goes right over Lazar's head due to his extreme narcissism. Despite having a finished book now, Lazar can't find a publisher for his autobiography, as all the publishers think that he's stupid, and claim that a quote-unquote story hook is just another convoluted word for story, and Rose suggests that he self-publishes, which the Naked Emperor thinks is an excellent idea. Dwight is slowly starting to run out of patience for the CEO and the company. While he likes how easy his job is, he knows that the company is going nowhere fast, and he knows that the company is just an outlet for the narcissist CEO to think he's accomplished something and to exude his power over others that he deems lesser than him. Sometime later, Lazar spends millions of dollars on a 1-minute ad for Peak 22, and his investors want answers. Lazar has been spreading rumors to slowly paint Rose as the cause of the lost money, so that she can be the scapegoat he can fire to save his own skin at the next big meeting. Dwight is consoling Rose, who is venting to him about how he has a pattern of doing this to women, promoting them, breaking them down, and then firing them. Lazar's plan, unfortunately, goes exactly like he wanted. He calls an all-hands-on-deck meeting and asks Rose to present her presentation on story hooks to everyone, a presentation that she got pre-approval from Lazar for, mind you, but it was all a setup. He interrupts her on every slide, embarrasses her in front of everyone, claims that she has no idea what a story hook is, which nobody else in the company does either, and before Dwight can even talk to her, she is fired and escorted out of the building. Lazar approaches Dwight after and explains that he had to let her go because her values didn't align with the company, and Dwight imagines screaming at him and ripping his ears off of his head, but instead does nothing and hopes that eventually he will come to justice. Dwight eventually finds himself at the yearly roast of Lazar, the Naked Emperor, where they joke and laugh about his terrible ideas. Everyone is ironically wearing Peak 22 merch with quotes from Lazar scribbled on them in marker. Dwight is laughing, but comes to the conclusion that it seems like Lazar is untouchable after all, and that no justice will ever come to him. Another ex-employee, Max, who was the previous Storyhook supervisor that was fired for refusing to cyberbully one of Lazar's critics, says to Dwight that if he still worked there, he would love to get Lazar a taste of his own medicine by dosing him with a quote-unquote harmless drug that makes someone laugh and find everything absurd. Dwight loves this idea. He gets thrilled at the idea of serving justice for all those people that the CEO has hurt and cast aside. He approaches Max, the ex-employee, who tells him everything about the drug. Max tells Dwight that the drug will make Lazar quote-unquote laugh so hard that he will piss his pants, and Dwight happily takes it from him. He confesses his plan to another one of his co-workers who is skeptical of the idea because she has kids to feed and doesn't want the company to go under in case the CEO hurts somebody. But Dwight assures her that he's just gonna laugh and make a fool of himself and promises that nobody will get hurt. She agrees to distract Lazar while Dwight spikes his coffee. Dwight feels intense satisfaction at the idea of an abuser getting what he deserves and teaching him that sometimes the little guy bites back. The meeting, however, does not go as planned.
Hey.
While that's all that was mentioned in Dwight's actual lore entries, there are several other mentions of Dwight from The Observer and in future archives that gives us a deeper look into who Dwight is, and even gives us a peek into the future and some of the fallout of his time at Peak 22. First mention is from The Observer, Arcus 723, in the same tome as Dwight's story. The Observer writes, "I pity Dwight. It's as though every action he takes brings the opposite of what he intends. Trying to help his fellow employees from an abuser, he ends up shutting down the entire operation, leaving many in a far worse situation than they were ever in. Granted, spiking a narcissist's drink and watching him unravel was worth the price of admission. The many memories of survivors struggling with narcissists have led me to the conclusion that there are only 3 possibilities when relating to a narcissist: enable them, run away from them, or destroy them. But beware, narcissists take everyone with them when they go down." The Observer feels empathetic towards Dwight, where it feels like no matter his good intentions, he always receives the opposite effect. I really like this entry because it seems like the Observer has taken a relatively special interest in Dwight and his character. It's kind of unusual for him to muse about specific people like this in such an understanding way, which I find really interesting. The next mention of Dwight is in Tome 6, Divergence, in another Observer section entry titled Notes from the Absurd, Emperor Dwight. It reads, "Ha! Bubblegum tuna on Tuesday. Sir Regal Dwight, in a thicklish purple robe and golden crownee, steps out into the courtyard and greets all of the peasants with good words and pizza. The kingdom cheers and roars." I love the nod in this one to his original tome lore, which is obviously from some other dimension where Dwight is some kind of ruler or completely insane. It's never explained. But this time, Dwight is the emperor instead of Lazar. It's kind of poetic in a way, the role and power reversal he always wanted, but only when he's insane. Even AU Dwight can't catch a break. The last mention of Dwight is from yet another Observer entry from Tome 18, Revision, Arcus 732, which, if you noticed from his first entry, Arcus 723, which implies that this is the same timeline from the Dwight that we know in-game, which is a neat detail. This one takes place in the future. The entry reads, "A lawyer offers Dwight millions to settle with the company. He tells them he'll settle if he gets a letter of apology for hiring and enabling a known abuser. They scoff at the request. They would rather give millions of dollars than apologize. Dwight turns down the offer, and I must admit this is something that I didn't expect from him. But then again, so many characters I've studied over the years have, to one degree or another, contradicted my initial impression of them. I guess that's what makes them human, the contradictions. Dwight probably should have just taken the money and ran. That way he wouldn't have had to endure all of those menial jobs throughout his life. But then again, there would be no elephant incident at the zoo, nor would there be the coyote incident when he worked as a roadkill collector, or even the incident driving the limousine across the country for that metal band. Come to think of it, I'm glad Dwight didn't take the money. I have found his memories amusing, if not entertaining. This entry in particular really resonates with me because it comes years after his last mention, let alone his first tome. It was a really nice way to wrap up and give us one last update on how Dwight's life went after his time at Peak 22, and shows us a really good look into his character. Even though his fear keeps him rooted to the spot, and he can't find the will to rise above his bad situations, nobody can claim that he doesn't have a heart of gold and incredible integrity. He turned down millions of dollars in a settlement so that he could get justice for his friends and what happened to them, and to take Lazar down. No matter how cowardly he can be in social situations, that right there is real bravery. And that's about it. There have been no other mention of Dwight or any lore drop outside of cosmetics, which I have no idea if they're canon or not, which is why I don't include them, since Tome 18. And now that the archives are gone for good, I have no idea how long we'll have to wait to learn more about him again. I really love how grounded and real Dwight feels, and the struggles that he has with internalized self-doubt and fear of rejection. That's something that I'm sure a lot of us can relate to, even if it's in much less extreme situations. Now I'm going to play all of his Tome entries for your listening pleasure, but if you don't make it to the end of the video, thank you all so much for watching. Please leave a like if you enjoyed, and enjoy the rest of the video. Thank you.
Lazar approaches Dwight and slams his desk. Max didn't work out. He was a weak male I just wanted to crush. Fear, anxiety, confusion. Dwight feels them all. How is this guy the CEO? More than that, he wanted to crush the employee he's replacing for being a weak male. Dwight doesn't even know what that means. Weak male? Who talks like that in this day and age? His hands fidget nervously. He swallows a growing lump in his throat. Lazar smashes his desk again. I need you to be bolder than him, Dwitch. I need you to get the buzz out there that we're the best company in the business. Did he just call me Dwitch? Dwitch. He just called me Dwitch. Dwight's still not sure what he's supposed to be doing at Peak 22. He's a story hook supervisor. He has no idea what that is. Sounds convoluted and made up. Sounds like bullshit. He took the job because he needs the money, and he can't dress up in costumes for birthday parties anymore. Kids can be so cruel. He's supposed to create fake profiles and write positive reviews about Lazar and his company. Lazar gives his desk another thump. Be a lion, Dwitch. Pounce on the internet. Pounce. Get the word out. Peak 22. We design story hooks for ads that transcend humanity. Dwight has no idea what that means. Lazar leaves a test on his desk and walks away. Dwight stares at the test, unsure. Rose, the manager who hired him, approaches him and explains it's an intelligence test. Lazar wants to make sure he's the smartest in his company. Best advice? Flunk it. Dwight smiles. Gotcha. Our thing is story hook advertising. Dwight cringes every time he hears story hook. Lazar's trying to be different just to be different. Most advertisements use stories to wrap a message in emotion. Just because you call it a story hook doesn't mean it's new, doesn't mean it's different. Story hook is a term used by high school English teachers. Rose laughs. Yes, but Lazar's an idiot, and he wants to feel like he created his own theory for his upcoming book. Dwight's eyes go wide. Book? What book? Rose laughs absurdly and explains. An autobiographic book, a guaranteed bestseller highlighting Lazar's new theory on creativity. But Lazar hasn't done anything yet. It's all smoke and mirrors. Rose laughs and corrects him. He's done one thing really well. He's burned through millions. Rose changes the subject and tells Dwight he needs to meet Lazar's ghostwriter for an interview. Make sure to shower praises about our naked emperor for his autobiography. Dwight approaches Rose. She isn't her usual jolly self. Dry tears line her cheek and her eyes are swollen. She tells him Lazar embarrassed her at a meeting when she refused to go along with his jokes at the expense of the sound designer's speech impediment. He humiliated her for not going along with his stuttering impression. Rose sighs and advises Dwight to record all meetings with the Naked Emperor, not just for legal reasons, but for the yearly roast. Dwight raises his eyebrows curiously. Yearly roast? What yearly roast? She tells him about a yearly gathering of ex-employees who get together to laugh at Lazar's stupidities. Dwight tilts his head. He's really confused. In his mind, Peak 22 just opened its doors. How long has Peak 22 existed? Rose calculates on her hands. 5 years. Dwight can't believe his ears. 5 years and Peak 22 has nothing? Rose smirks. Correction. 5 years and we almost have Lazar's biography and his theory on creativity. Dwight showers Lazar with online praise using fake profiles. It's the coziest job he's ever had. As he prepares to create another false profile, he suddenly hears shouts coming from Lazar's office. He freezes as Lazar verbally assaults the Peak 22 lawyer. The lawyer is telling him Storyhook can't be registered. It's a concept in many high school textbooks. Lazar fires the lawyer on the spot. The lawyer promises he'll sue. Lazar doesn't care. He'll settle. He always settles. It isn't his money. And Dwight's heard he's got his benefactors eating out of the palm of his hands. He's already settled dozens of wrongful dismissals. Rose attempts to calm Lazar down, but he screams at her to mind her business. Dwight wants to help her, but he's never made so much money doing so little before. He likes making money doing nothing. But his hands are fidgeting, and his palms are getting damp and clammy. Hearing Lazar verbally abuse Rose is difficult to bear. He imagines all kinds of scenarios where he leaps from his desk to help her. Nervousness fills his bladder, and he leaps from his chair and rushes to the bathroom. The Brilliant Mind, Inc. Lazar announces the title of his autobiography to the entire office. It feels like a joke, a bad joke, but it's not, and the studio is trying not to laugh at the Naked Emperor. Lazar hasn't done anything in the 5 years since he convinced a bunch of millionaires in his storyhook revolution. He doesn't even have one successful advertising campaign. They had a few clients in the beginning, but Lazar wanted to write and direct the commercials himself and made a mess of everything. Dwight suppresses a laugh. Rose claps when Lazar concludes his presentation. Amazing, paradigm-changing. How gracious of you to share the secrets of your success with the world. Everyone gets her sarcasm except Lazar. That's the thing about narcissists. They believe their own press release. Lazar turns his attention to Dwight. Dwitch, what do you think? Dwight suddenly feels the blood drain from his face. He echoes Rose. Amazing, paradigm-changing. How gracious of you to share the secrets of your success with the world. Lazar smiles. It's not about ego, Dwitch. It's about community and selflessness. Lazar screams at Rose because she can't find a publisher for The Brilliant Mind, Inc. Peak 22 has done nothing, and creating campaigns with a story hook isn't really paradigm-changing. The publishers think he's an idiot. Why is he saying story hook when he means story? Ads with a story with a story hook? Rose calms Lazar down. She suggests that they should self-publish. The idea silences Lazar. You're right. You're absolutely right. The publishing world isn't ready for my visionary ideas. Dwight sighs and finds it harder and harder to listen to his bullshit. Peak 22 is going nowhere fast. The company is having a hard time finding clients and recruiting with all the rumors of abuse. Lazar announces he has a solution for recruitment. He'll write a story hook recruitment campaign to attract the best employees. Hundreds will apply, thousands. Dwight doesn't understand. For what? Dwight still isn't sure if Peak 22 does anything other than enable a narcissist to do whatever he wants to whomever he wants. Lazar is spreading rumors about Rose. Dwight consoles her, but she's inconsolable. She says it's a pattern, his pattern. He discredits, destroys, and demolishes an employee before he fires them. He spreads the rumor he later uses to fire the person. Dwight says she's exaggerating. Rose shakes her head. Lazar's in trouble. He just spent more money on a 1-minute ad campaign for Peak 22 than a Hollywood blockbuster, and his investors want answers. He needs a fall girl, someone to blame for the mismanagement of company funds. Dwight doesn't understand. She explains that Lazar's already left a trail of blood in his wake. The last 3 women in her position were all promoted and fired for Lazar's excesses and stupidities. Lazar has an upcoming meeting with his investors. She will be this year's patsy. Dwight gives her a skeptical look. She shakes her head. You'll see. He spends the money. A woman takes the fall. That's Lazar's idea of equal opportunity. Dwight stares in disbelief as Lazar asks Rose to present the advantages of story hook advertising at an all-hands meeting. He interrupts her on every slide in front of everyone, then cancels the meeting. He acts as though it's the first time he's seen Rose's deck. He announces Rose has no idea what a story hook is. Everyone leaves the cafeteria feeling bad for her, grumbling that no one knows what he means by story hook or how stupid he is for using a contrived term that just means story. Dwight doesn't understand because she validated every slide in her deck with Lazar. He heard them agree. Before Dwight can talk to her, she is fired and escorted out of Peak 22. Dwight watches his friend, a single mother, walk out. This year's patsy for Lazar's excesses. He siphons the investment money and his friend gets the boot. The whole meeting was a setup to discredit her in front of everyone. Lazar approaches Dwight. Sorry, Dwitch. I know Rose was your manager, but I had to let her go. She wasn't aligned with our company values. Dwight stares at Lazar in mingled shock and horror. What values? He wants to scream at Lazar. He wants to grab his ears and rip them out of his narcissistic head. Instead, he nods and silently prays there is justice in the world. Dwight listens in disbelief to stories of Lazar, real-life horror stories, stories that defy reason for this day and age. It's a yearly ritual for those who have had the misfortune to work with Lazar. They've all gathered to watch the leaked Peak 22 recruitment video. Dozens of people, each wearing a white Peak 22 t-shirt with a ridiculous Lazar quote they scribbled on with marker. One of them worked with Lazar at a production company where he tried to produce a terrible web series he wrote. It's about an alien computer that takes over the world and controls its inhabitants with a matrix that simulates reality. No one told him he just pitched the premise of a major blockbuster film. She imitates Lazar selling his web series. It's different, it's unique, it's not horror, it's not sci-fi, it's terror. Sheer terror. It's a new genre. It's simulated terror. Lazar believed he had created the next big genre like cosmic horror. The writer shows a book written by Lazar, Simulated Terror, Guidelines for Writers in His New Genre. They all burst out laughing. Dwight laughs so hard it hurts. Who says story hook when they mean story, or simulated terror when they mean sci-fi? The stories of the Naked Emperor continue throughout the night, and Dwight is convinced there is no justice. Peak 22's ex-Storyhook supervisor talks about how Lazar called him a weak male for not wanting to cyberbully a blogger for using the term storyhook. He tells them about a harmless drug that makes people laugh absurdly at every little sound. He says if he was still working at Peak 22, he'd give Lazar a little taste of his own medicine. Others agree. That would be hilarious. Dwight likes the idea, likes it a lot. It might be that justice works in mysterious ways. He approaches Max. Tell me more about this harmless drug. Max hands Dwight a mix of his laughing drug. It will make him giggle and laugh so much he'll piss his pants. Pour it in his coffee right before his meeting, and you'll have a story hook unlike any other for next year's roast. Dwight smiles. He feels his heart pounding his chest. Rose will have justice. Everyone will. Dwight will teach this abuser that sometimes the little guy bites back. Inspired, he asks one of his colleagues to distract Lazar while he spikes his coffee. Another colleague listens to the plan and shakes her head skeptically. She isn't sure. She doesn't like this prank and cautions Dwight to think things through. I've got 2 kids, she says, and the last thing I want is for the investors to close down shop because he hallucinates or hurts someone. Dwight laughs. Don't worry. The most that will happen is he'll act like a donkey. Dwight lifts his chin proudly and reassures her no one will get hurt. He places his hand on her shoulder and feels like the leader he always knew he's been. Nothing bad will happen, or my name isn't Dwight.